Milo, is that you?
There, I think I got it. We got troubles in River City.
Already? We got troubles in River City?
Well, no, I guess not. We got Kelly and we got Bruce, so that's okay.
There you go.
Well,
Kelly and Bruce. Kelly and Bruce. Bruce and Kelly. Hey, Kelly.
All right, I'm leaving. Bye.
Bye.
I'm staying here. Just no.
You're leaving, but
picture.
you're staying here. You're leaving,
Yep.
but you're staying. So you're in. You're already.
He's president of audio only now.
Yeah, he's never heard
Which
the
is a
podcast.
good thing because it's an audio podcast.
Yeah, he's never heard the podcast before because he just let himself in. He just waltzed into the studio and he's already out of the green room.
He's a second timer, right? He's a repeat guest, so
Yeah,
he figured he'd own the place.
Yeah, that's right. That's
I noticed you got to skip the shrimp the second time.
Skip the shrimp. That would be a good name for a restaurant too. Skip the shrimp.
Skip the shrimp.
Right next because we like sushi.
Yeah,
skip the shrimp.
The shrimp. That's good.
It's a Mexican place. Skip the shrimp. Hey Kelly, I saw you ordered a couple of those
shirts.
Yeah, with the modeler's life and on the dog.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
That looks like it's a cool shirt, especially when I'm wearing it.
I got two of them because one I'll wear to work and it might get covered with resin, and the other one I'll use for special occasions.
Oh, like with
like a dress shirt.
No, let's see.
You mean for weddings and funerals and stuff like that?
No, Tom Stock, conventions.
I see. Like it's a dress shirt. Most AML attire can also be used as evening wear.
Yeah,
exactly. Definitely. Why couldn't it be?
I'll tell my employer that.
Yeah, why don't you tell your employer?
Yeah, why don't you see how that goes over?
So for those of you who don't know, and there's no reason why you would, unless you're an absolute avid fan of, man, that's what we should do is have people guess who mystery guest.
Guess the guest?
Yeah.
Guest sign in, please.
Yeah.
Yes. What's my line?
Except we already know who it is, so it's not really. We're gonna ask.
Not all of us know who it is.
That's true.
I'm the deep cuts guy. You got to go way down the line.
No, do you?
Yeah, you got to go way deep to find who I am.
What episode were you on before?
That's a good question. It's been about 2 years, I think.
It has been about 2 years, hasn't it?
Yep.
It's been a while. Time flies when you're having fun.
I think it was beginning of 2020, right when the pandemic started.
Yeah, just before the I think it really literally was just before the pandemic.
Because we met in January of 2020 in Springfield.
That's right.
That's correct.
And then right after that, somewhere in there, in the next couple of months, we did an interview.
Yeah.
And then I played it, and then that was the last we ever saw of you.
That's right. Until Springfield of 2022.
That's right. And you brought that little minivan for David, or for David.
Yeah, for Dave Abelese. Yeah.
And I gave it to him.
Excellent.
That was one of the first. I had it in my pocket so I wouldn't forget it. And I think I gave it to him on the very first time I went into the layout, actually.
Great.
So he's got to put it somewhere. So anyways, our guest today, Mr. Wilson, Kelly,
yes,
is David Heyde, who was on a couple of years ago. He lives in the Dallas, Texas area. Correct?
That's correct. To pinpoint it, I live in Garland, Texas.
Ooh, is that like a suburb?
Yeah, it's just to the kind of northeast of Dallas.
Is it like a suburb, like you can't tell the difference between Garland and...
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Garland is a fairly large suburb. Most people, when they drive through Garland, they think, oh, I don't want to stop in Garland, but I live in the nicer area of Garland.
Oh, okay. How long does it take you to get to downtown Dallas?
So I'm about 17, 18 miles from work. So... about 25 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes in the morning when I have to go to work. And when I'm headed home, I can do it in about 18 minutes because there's no traffic. So yeah.
How big is our buddy Chris Atkins? He lives in Argyle, Texas, which happens to be the home of the Fighting Sox. And Fred, the Fighting Sock, which is just down the road from Denton, Texas. So Garland is, like you say, just a little bit northeast of downtown Dallas. How long would it take you to get from Garland to Argyle, Texas?
Oh, probably Chris would know better because he actually his employer is right near my house, within 5-10 minutes. But I know he's been working from home. But I would say 30 minutes as a rough estimate. I can get to Denton in about 35 minutes.
Okay.
He's west of there, I guess. I don't get over that way very often. The whole Metroplex, we call it the Metroplex. Everything's got to end with an X in Texas. Everything's X, Tex, Metroplex. But the whole area is about, I think, 7 million people now.
Wow.
It's a big area. So, I can drive from where I am to get to the other very far side of the Metroplex over by Fort Worth. It's a good hour to an hour and a half. So it's a large area.
I haven't been to Texas for a while. I haven't been to Dallas for a while. Dallas is such a huge airport.
Yeah, it is. It's a big hub airport for American Airlines.
Isn't there two airports in Dallas?
Yeah, we have DFW, which is kind of in the middle of the whole area, kind of on the north side in the middle, and then we have Love Field, which is in downtown Dallas, basically.
I think that's where Southwest flies.
That's correct. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, have you ever seen Tracy Boyd, the official flight attendant on the AML network?
I have not, and I do fly Southwest occasionally. I fly American a little bit more because they have a lot more destinations. But when I do fly Southwest, I do look for her, but I have not seen her yet.
Yeah, but I think they fly into Love Field, and then when she's not there, she might be just out wandering around. So,
yeah, and both Southwest and American are based here. Both of their headquarters are here. So,
so let's remind everybody what you do for a living, which is really, really cool. It is cool.
It is. It is. It's interesting. Well, it's different. We'll put it that way.
I'm a fanboy. You know what? You're the second guy, second person, the second fellow I have declared that I'm going to be a fanboy of, because the first one I decided I'm not going to hold back. The first one was John Farrington, who is a friend of our buddy Don Iris, the average Don, and he flies a corporate jet.
That's very cool.
For an individual. Not for a company, for an individual that owns the company, that owns the jet. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be a fanboy of yours. So I think I'm going to say the same thing to you. I'm going to be a fanboy of David Heyde, because
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it. So I play the French horn in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and I've been there for 18 years, and this is my 20th year in professional orchestras, full-time professional orchestras. So I'm officially, I just heard on the podcast the other night, I'm officially middle-aged.
Oh.
So
you're 45.
I'm 43, so I'm
43.
pretty close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you're 55 and you say you're middle-aged, then you got to ask yourself, just how many 110-year-olds do you know?
That's right.
So Bruce and Kelly were way beyond.
Yes, we're...
Well, Kelly, you're like 100 years old.
Yeah, I'm 68.
Yeah, that's 100 years old, man.
Does that mean I'm gonna live to 136?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're gonna live to 136. You're middle age. So you're the lead French horn, are you not?
Currently, yes, I am right now. We have a vacancy, and they call the lead French horn the principal. We have a vacancy right now. My normal title is associate principal. So the associate principal is kind of the second person in command, if you will. Not the B team necessarily, but the like if we have a program, there'll be a first and a second half with an intermission. I'll usually play the first half, which is usually like an overture and then a concerto with a very accomplished soloist. And then I'll go home. So I get to go home early. And then the principal stays and plays the symphony. That's usually the longer work.
Oh, okay.
But right now we have a vacancy in the principal chair. So my title right now is acting principal.
So now can I ask a somewhat personal question?
Of course.
Would you like to be the principal, or are you just kind of happy to be the assistant principal?
Yeah. So I get enough seat time where I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Playing principal is, and people that aren't in this field don't really understand it. They think, oh, it's just easy. You show up and, toot your horn, so to speak. But it's really stressful. We're expected to be as close to perfect on stage as we can be every week. And if I wanted to have my hobby, which I love so much, model railroading, and if I wanted to have kind of a life, I'm not sure I would be super happy playing principal because I wouldn't have time for other things. It's pretty consuming. So I made the decision about 10 years ago to kind of stay where I'm at. I'm pretty happy with my position. And,
that's really, really interesting. That is of course, I've said it 1,000 times. How cool is that about this podcast? We meet all kinds of people that we get to ask all kinds of questions to. I mean, I just wouldn't even, like you say, I think most people think you just show up and toot your horn and go home and practice for a couple hours a week. And I mean, when we were in Springfield there, at some point when you and I were talking, you said, yeah, I'm going to go, I got my French horn with me or my horn with me, and I'm going to practice a little bit in the hotel room or something. And I'm thinking, holy moly.
Yeah.
Like you got to do it that much, eh? It's got to be.
Yeah. And I took it with me. I actually had it. I stayed over by the vehicle club at Springfield. A lot of the guys that I'm friends with in Dallas are higher ups with the vehicle club. They run the website and they organize all the meets and stuff. And so I actually brought my horn to the show, and I was sitting behind the tables with a mute in, so you couldn't really tell I was playing, but I was just sitting there practicing. People would kind of stare at me and look, but I have to put the FaceTime in, and I knew if I waited till after the show was over every day and we went out to dinner and I had a few brewskis, I wasn't going to want to practice at all in the hotel room. So I just decided to put about an hour and a half a day while we were in Springfield, because I had to go back on Tuesday morning and play Rachmaninoff Symphony the next week, and then I had a couple other big programs after that. So I have to stay in shape. And brass players, we use these very small muscle groups in the face, and kind of we have to stay in more shape than just about anybody else in the orchestra. As far as if we don't stay in shape, we take a week off, you really, really notice it. So we have to stay in shape, and it just goes with the territory. Once you're in this career, that when you go on vacation, unless you're finishing the season and you have that long break in the summer, that horn is going to be on your back when you get on that airplane to go on vacation. It just has to be with you all the time. So,
wow. That's like when I was played hockey as a teenager and a little bit into my late teens, and that whenever I would occasionally get into a Donnybrook, I'd use my face muscles occasionally.
Often on the receiving end.
Yeah, leading with my chin.
That's funny.
There's nothing worse than getting into a hockey, a scrum, a bit of a Donnybrook in a hockey game, and you quickly realize after the first punch or two that you're in a lot of trouble. I find that to be endlessly fascinating. It's like being a professional, in any sport. To maintain that level of ability, you just have to constantly be always practicing, like a professional basketball player, football player.
It's training all the time, and they don't tell you that when you're a kid or when you're in college, that you have to really stay at it as you get older, especially. It's small muscle groups, but we are athletes in that way. My wife is in the orchestra with me. She's a violinist, and she has to keep her, her hands in shape and her bow arm and her shoulders. And, every instrument has a lot of, you can get into trouble if you're not taking care of your body. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. And I remember you telling us that you had met your wife in the orchestra. I guess, what did you pass some notes across or something? When you
Yeah, no, I met her in the orchestra. She had come from the Houston Symphony, and I just started talking to her, and we hit it off, and yeah, the rest is history. Now we have 3 kids. So.
Yeah, exactly. How cool is that? Do any of the kids show any kind of musical interest?
So I have a 15-year-old from my first marriage. she plays the violin. I'm not sure she's going to do it for a career. I don't think she has that interest. Both of us, my wife and I, aren't really pushing that. We want them to learn the instrument, but we know how hard this career path is to be successful in it. But so we don't want to, be, helicopter parents when it comes to. We're going to let them find their own way. And then our 6-year-old Nicole, our middle child, she also plays the violin, and she just started a couple years ago, and she's doing really well. And then my little boy, he's 2.5, so he hasn't started anything yet.
No.
So,
so you're going to be, if they show that interest, you're going to encourage them, but you're not going to push them.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, I have too many old friends. I have a friend of mine that we grew up together, and he was a professional baseball player in the major leagues. And his dad was just so hard on him. And I think you don't want to be that kind of parent.
No.
So we want to make sure they do well in school and stuff, and make sure they're getting their good grades, but we'll let them find their own way.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So is there anywhere on the intranet, the World Wide Web, that has, do you have a Facebook page or anything for your model railroad?
I do. We talked a little bit about it in Springfield, but, it's the Missouri, Kansas, Texas.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's a long name, Lionel. You're not going to like it.
Yeah.
Missouri, Kansas, Texas, Central Texas subdivision in HO scale. So the Missouri, Kansas, Texas had a Texas subdivision, right? And it went from Fort Worth, Waco, Texas, down to Smithville, Texas. And so my layout is much smaller than that. So it's a little bit of a fictitious play on the Texas subdivision. And it's on Facebook. You can join. It's open to anybody that wants to join. I think I just have to approve them. But I just started it maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I have some pictures up. I'm so busy, it's hard to keep it updated, but I'm going to try. I need to do another post here soon. So,
I guess I'm already a member. Look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess I've already joined.
So it's about 12. It's in a 1-car garage. I have a split garage, a 2 and a 1.
Right.
So we don't have any basements in Texas, which is a total drag. But it's in a 1-car garage. It's about 12 by 22 with a peninsula, 1 single level. And originally I had a car parked in there. So it was set high enough to where I could pull in my car and open the doors, and it was just above the doors. It was a low car. So
right,
it was a 911. So I could pull it in, but then when we sold the 911, we added the peninsula. So, if I were to do it all over again, I'd probably do a double deck layout, like what Don did.
Okay.
Because he has a similar size space, I think, in Florida.
12 by 20. You got 13 by 22.
Yeah. So it's about similar space.
I see that he's a member. I'm apparently not a member. I have sent an invitation. Kelly, did you send an invitation or a request to join?
Not yet.
Okay. Well,
I'll approve you guys. Can you see stuff, Lionel, or you want me to approve you?
No, you're going to have to approve me because I can only see the most recent post, and I see the average Don is already a member. So look at that.
Okay, now you just accepted, so you should be able to see stuff now.
All right, cool. Look at that. I've been accepted, Kelly. How about you?
I'm working on it.
Do you have the plan anywhere on here?
I don't, but I need to post that. I had posted some stuff on, I think it was the Model Railroad Hobbyist website when I was designing the plan, because as a non-railroader, I wanted to make sure that there was enough operations and stuff made at least some semblance of sense for the hardcore guys. Something that really spoke to me the other day, you were talking to Dave Abelese on, I think it was on the Patreon channel, is that, this hobby is for everyone. And, even if it's not super prototypical, like his 8% grade, if it works, it works. And so, I just decided just to jump in, feet first and just go for it. And even if something's not quite right, we'll just learn to live with it or work on it or, And I'm a musician. I'm not a railroader, but I try to learn as much as I can, and going to other people's layouts and operating, talking to club members at the club that are a little more in depth with things, and then also just knowing my limitations. I'm not an electronics guy, so I have a friend of mine, Bob Schabel, who was, he worked for Abbott Laboratories forever and ever on the electronic side, fixing, these high-end machines that they used. And so he helped me install all the signals. He helped me do the wiring correctly, put in power districts, and now we're building a panel with these really cool touch button from Barrett Hill, these touch button switches with servo motors, just to throw switches in the yard. So
there's a lot you got a lot of cool pictures here. Like, man, oh man.
Yeah, so I really enjoy the scenery and detailing locomotives and stuff like that. But I don't find a lot of joy in electronics, figuring it out. I love it when it works, and it takes us a while to get it down. But
well, what about the signals? I see you got signals on here. Have you done that, or did you have help with that? Or
well, Bob helped me with that. We figured that out. That took a while. That is just the basic ABS.
Right.
We're using ABS system with Atlas, so it's all kind of automatically. My whole goal with the railroad is to be able to operate, with just a few guys, 2, 3, 4 guys, one night, get some brewskis and sit down and just have some fun and relax a little bit. And I wanted the layout to look, though, as authentic as possible, as far as, having the signals there, making the scenery look believable. Operating trains through scenery just adds so much, having the backdrops and everything. So,
but the way you're describing it to me sounds exactly what the hobby should be. I mean, what you're interested in. You've built a beautiful layout here. I can tell just from the photos. And by the way, just so everybody's clear, the name on the Facebook is, and get a pen or a pencil or a recording. I think you have the longest name going.
It is pretty long.
The Missouri,
Kansas,
Texas, Central Texas subdivision in HO scale.
Yep, that's it.
See,
it is long.
It took so long I had to take a breath.
It is.
But your scenery is spectacular. But that's the whole kind of the point of the mission, is that what you really enjoy is creating the scene, the actual scene, and you've got signals up there to help create the scene. So, sometimes people kind of start to apologize because, they may have been listening to, Uncle Dave and, how wound up he is about his signal system. But in your particular case, scenery is your thing. You want to have it operational. You like to have some signals. It's just beautiful what you've done here.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun. And, I feel like the signals add to the scenery aspect, but I also want them to function correctly. So when we are having operations, and the switch is thrown to the siding, it's red over green or whatever it needs to be, or the next block, there's a train up there and the signal's yellow. So, but the Katy, the MKT, the Katy, it was absorbed in the Union Pacific in 1988. So it was a relatively not a very modern railroad, as far as there wasn't the kind of stuff that we see today. So there was some CTC, but for a lot of the railroad, it was ABS, train order, timetable. So my next step right now, and I've kind of drug my feet a little bit, is cataloging all my cars, and we're going to try to operate with JMRI, switchless.
So do you have like 4 or 5 half a dozen regular guys that you kind of have on a regular basis come over? Is that kind of the plan?
We do. I've got Bob Schabel is over here quite a bit working with me right now, and then I've got I've got, like I know Chris pretty well, and I've operated a little bit in the operations group that he runs, and Speed, who's also here. Speed's not far from me, actually, in Murphy, Texas, which is just down the road. But then I'm also in this club, Texas Northern Model Railroad Club, and we have 87 members in that club, and it's so I have a lot of friends in that club.
Wow,
and so,
87 members. And how do they feel like? Does it feel like a lot of them are active?
Oh yeah, very active. I would say out of the 87 members, I would say probably 50 to 60 of them are there at least, a few times a month. The club has really grown. This club it's an older club, and it was originally a modular club. So we have grown the membership, though. I mean, it was down around 25 members at one point, and then we had to move, and we moved into a mall in Plano, Texas, for a while, and then that really grew the membership. And then when that mall closed, as what a lot of malls are doing in North America because of the internet, we moved just into Dallas, into a place. But we've grown the membership with Facebook, and social media has really helped grow the club, and we've seen a lot of younger members, which has been great. I am not one of the younger members anymore. We're getting members now that are in their early 20s. We have members that their parents pay for them, and these kids will come up that are 12, 14 years old, and they'll get to run their trains. So we have it's a completely open club. You can run whatever you want, any time period. Everybody gets along. There's not a lot of politics. It's a really great club. So,
so does it have a Facebook page?
Yeah, it's called the Texas Northern Model Railroad Club.
See, now what? See, now you notice what they did there? They only used like 5 words. Have you given that any thought?
I think I'm going to change the name to the short.
Yeah.
The short railroad in HO scale.
Yeah. So anybody that's looking, if you just type in Texas Northern into the Facebook search, you're going to find it pretty quick.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's so where was it? Had it moved when we last talked? Because it seems to me I remember the thing about the mall. When was it you've moved to where your present
we
location?
moved out of the mall, I think 3 years ago, two or 3 years ago.
Okay, so you just moved.
They bulldozed the mall. They're turning it into a mixed use development thing. It's hundreds of millions of dollar project.
Sure.
So they kicked us out. We had ridiculously cheap rent there, and it was great because mall walkers would walk by, moms would walk by with their kids, dads would walk by with their kids, and they'd come in and they'd just look at the layout, and it would spark interest in the layout and in the club and in model railroading. And I think that's the thing that we have to do more of. When people come over to my house, colleagues, friends, and they know I'm kind of into trains, it's the first thing they ask to see. Can we see the layout?
Right.
And people are kind of interested in it. And, it's like, I think that's what you always talk about. Social media has really helped the hobby to expand.
Let's have that conversation, because I think that's basically what people don't realize is that the hobby lived underground up until 15 years ago. And that's a perfect example of of your club being in a mall, and people just foot traffic going past it helped grow the membership. And the same thing is happening with social media. It's just bringing the hobby out from being underground. And now you're getting members of all ages because they discover the hobby, they discover it's there, and they want to. We have no idea how big this hobby is going to grow over the next 15, 20 years. It's going to grow like crazy.
And the level of what you can buy now, even 15 years ago, what you can put together, what you get in a box, it's mind blowing. I mean, the detail and the sophistication, what they can do with Arduinos now under the layout, and what they can do with, injected plastic models in China that are shipped over here from all these great manufacturers. It's just such a great hobby. And, as someone that's pretty artistic, being a musician, I have to play the notes at a certain point, and I have to listen to the guy on the podium or the woman on the podium and what they want. And so when I come home, I can go out and I can create what I want to create. And I think that's something that a lot of us look forward to when we're not, being told what to do. We can go do what we want to do and create. And I think it's a whole nother kind of, I think it really is an art. It's an art form that, when you see a great model railroad, you go, wow, it's really something special. So,
well, and I can tell from the pictures of your layout. I mean, you obviously, and it's important. Like, it's like I always say, everybody that's in the hobby is a model railroader. Some people's layouts maybe, I don't know how to say it, but I mean, everybody's artists are artists, and there's some artists that are abstract artists, or some artists that like to paint realism. I mean, everybody's the same, but I mean, looking at the pictures of your layout, like, man, you're just like, you have a lot of talent, a lot of artistic talent, which is really cool. And you can tell you're kind of like Don, the average Don, whereas, man, he's just got that knack for creating a scene, and you obviously have the same knack. What you need to learn now is how to get really good at taking photos.
Yeah, you're right. I do. That's true. Yeah. And I appreciate that. I mean, I love seeing other people's layouts, and I love I kind of humbly share my stuff. I'm not sure it doesn't always measure up to other people's, but I feel like just putting something out there can help other people get ideas for their own layout. It's just neat. It's neat for me to be able to see, say, a Canadian National layout, or someone, that's doing a Rio Grande layout or a Conrail layout. And, I'm doing the MKT. And so, it's pretty neat just to see all these different areas and railroads come to life again, especially the fallen flag railroads that aren't around anymore. So,
yeah. And I'm looking at one scene here, a local passing the Tex Ren Motors, and the background. I mean, you've managed to blend the background in there really nicely. Here's a good question for a guy that's 45. Do you think it is easier now to create a beautiful model railroad, more easier than it was before, because not only of the availability of products, but also the availability to learn how to do things? I mean, yours seems to be the kind of layout you'd walk in and like, oh man, this is cool. It's just the same as the first time I walked into Don's place or Uncle Dave's place. You're just going, man, this is cool. This is really great.
I will tell you that I tried to build a layout 20 years ago. And so I grew up with like a 4x8 railroad with my dad when I was a kid. Right. And you'd buy the normal stuff, and you'd run DC trains in circles and stuff. And I loved it, and then you go through the normal progression of girls and cars, and you get older and you're focused on getting a good job and stuff. And then things started to settle down, and I tried to build a layout 20 years ago, and I was so frustrated because you think 20 years is not that long ago. I mean, it kind of is for some people, but for a lot of us, it's not that long ago. And there wasn't the amount of information that there is now. You had the magazines, you had the model railroader books, but those are really limited in how to learn how to do some things, because still pictures don't really teach you the same way of seeing it done on a video. And so, 4 or 5 years ago, I said, all right, I'm going to try this again. And there was so much more information now than there was even 20 years ago because of the internet. And I subscribed to Trainmasters TV. I subscribed to Model Railroader Plus. And of course I'm on YouTube a lot, watching how to do things. And if there's something I don't like, then I don't do it. But if I find something that's really great, then I take bits and pieces of that and apply it to my own railroad. And just having the videos available now to see how things, these great artists do things, it's added so much to my own railroad. And so I like to share I'm kind of the de facto scenery guy in our club layout now. I've kind of taken over doing a lot of the scenery stuff. So people will come to me and they ask me, "Hey, how did you make that super tree?" Or, "Hey, how did you make that road?" Or, "How did you carve that foam?" And I learned all this stuff just from watching other people do it. Like watching the dude carve foam on his show. You know, and watching Train Masters and getting ideas and just networking and reaching out to people like Don and saying, "Man, I really like your layout. How did you do this?" Or, reaching out to Dave and say, "Hey, what do you think about this signal or that signal?" And, there's so many great, really nice people in this hobby. We talked a little bit about this a couple of years ago. I was really, really into cars. I was really into car culture. And that's kind of it's like always a big competition. Who's faster? Who's cooler? And those guys aren't as friendly. Model railroaders, this hobby is so friendly. Everybody is so nice, and we all just want to have fun and joke around and just it's a great hobby. It's just such a great hobby, and it's been so valuable for me, especially when I'm stressed out or I'm down in the dumps from something that's going on in my life, and I can go out there and it just lifts my spirits instantly. And I think that's really important for everyone to have in their life.
This might embarrass you, and I hope it doesn't. Well, I don't care because I know you pretty well. So, I would say we're friends pretty much.
I think we are, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the fact that you're a professional, like you're in a business that requires a lot of attention. You have to be professional. You have to be very, very good at it. You can't let it go. You have to practice. And on top of that, you are obviously an accomplished model railroader. And on top of that, you love the community. You embrace the community. I think that's the kind of thing that helps push the hobby forward, is that, again, like you take me, for example, I'm just a working stiff. I'm just a regular guy. And I'd love to be super good at something like you are, but that's not everybody can achieve the top level of anything. So I think it's really cool. I think that's what it's making this hobby even better. It's guys like David that's, plays in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and he's an accomplished model railroader, and he just likes the community. I mean, I think we're going to make the community grow like crazy, which is just going to make the hobby grow like crazy. Did that make any sense at all?
Absolutely. And Lionel, don't sell yourself short, man. You have done so much for this hobby. The podcast is so fantastic, and you are really talented at what you do. And it's so entertaining. And just by putting out, I look forward to these podcasts every week. I listen to them on my commute. Sometimes I listen to them when I'm working on the railroad. Sometimes I listen to them when I'm getting ready in the morning. And I think it's so important. And you are very talented at what you do, and you're not just a working stiff. I mean, you've really helped push this hobby forward too. And the podcast is infectious. I mean, once you start listening to it, you're hooked. And at first, when I first started listening to it, I was like, okay, all right. And then after a few episodes, I was hooked. And I think that by you interviewing all of these different people from all walks of life, it really brings a lot of interest to the hobby. And I think by you doing this, you're pushing it forward much more than someone like me. But I think,
but I think it's a combination of you and I are anxious. We were anxious to see each other in Springfield. You're anxious to help as much as you can by, I send you a message. Hey, I want to be sure. I want to, and you're anxious to tell your story on the podcast. I mean, I think it's a combination of everything. And I think the podcast was at one point really good until I started making Kelly a regular. And
that's the beginning. That's at the beginning too.
I know. Yeah. Like, imagine where we'd be without you. Holy man.
Oh my gosh.
That's when it all went horribly, horribly wrong.
The plane crashed. Oh man.
But it's just like what you talk about though, Lionel. It's like, I would never have met you if it wasn't for the podcast, and I never would have met Bruce or Kelly or any of the great people that you have on here. A couple months ago, right before Springfield, Nick Santo was in Dallas, and he came up to see his friend Paul Gillette. Paul is in our train club.
Right.
And I had breakfast with Nick, and I didn't know it was Nick because I only knew Nick from his Facebook page, which didn't have his beard. So I'm sitting across the table from Nick Santo, and, I'm like, oh, okay, this is some guy that's friends with Paul. And then we got to the show later on that day, and I put two and two together that's Nick Santo that has the Decoder Buddy. And then I went up to him and I apologized, but because I didn't know it was Nick Santo. But and now we had a great visit, and we had a great visit at Springfield the week after, and it's just another very nice person that I've had the pleasure to meet in this hobby. So
maybe what we're missing here, maybe what it is that we're missing is that the digital age, the social media is making it obvious to everybody what a great community this is. I mean, that's walking away. I have never had as much interaction in the hobby until I started the podcast. And I mean, we know so many people, and we've had so much fun with people. And I mean, literally, I could be in Dallas and say, hey, David, are you doing anything? Are you working? And if you were, great. But if you weren't, we'd go out to lunch and have all kinds of fun.
Absolutely. In fact, I want to invite you guys down. You got to come down, for the NMRA convention. There's lots of podcast listeners down here in Dallas. We'd love to see you sometime.
Yeah, so. I see. I was looking at one of your pictures here, and you got Dean Ferris made a comment, and then Shane Murphy, and I'm thinking, man. And Chris Atkins is always bugging me to get Dean Ferris on the podcast.
Oh, I operated his layout a few months ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful layout.
Would you put in a good word for me?
Of course.
All right, cool. And when he goes, hey, that Lionel guy contacted me. What do I do now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a great time over there. He has a beautiful N-scale layout, just beautiful.
And it's he's been in the hobby. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody that's in the hobby has been in the hobby forever, pretty much. Not everybody, but the majority of people. And then those that have joined the hobby as they've gone along is fantastic. So can you tell me, before we get too far off course, can you tell me about the vehicle club? Because the last time we talked, and when we were in Springfield, you were saying about how you're with the vehicle guys, and I have never interviewed anybody from that. I'm still kicking myself. And every year at Springfield, I'm thinking, I got to get over to that booth and find somebody to talk to, and I have yet to do it. So, I mean, that's a pretty cool club, that 187.
It is. It is a really cool club. There are some really neat guys there. And I'm really good friends with the webmaster. He kind of arranges the Springfield meet too. Bob Johnson. He owns a small company called Master Built Models. It's built like Peter built, BILT, Master Built Models. And he sells like detail parts for trucks, and he exhaust heat shields that you put on the exhaust stacks. And he also sells some stuff on eBay. But he buys a lot of vehicles and sells them on eBay. And but he's a computer guy during the day. He does computer stuff for a company. But he's in our Texas Northern Model Railroad Club, and I'm really good friends with Bob. And then there's another guy who's a past president of the Texas Northern Model Railroad Club, Dan Goins, who is also very involved in the 187 Vehicle Club. So those two guys said, a few years ago, I said, you really need to come to Springfield, David. I said, okay. He said, you won't regret it. I said, all right, I'm in. So we went, and ever since then, I've gotten to know the vehicle guys pretty well. They have their own banquets and stuff up there, and much like the AML does. But they have these big static displays of these really cool, kit bash trucks, kit bash cars, cranes, construction equipment. I mean, it runs the whole gamut of everything. And all of that stuff, I think what model railroaders are realizing now is that you can't have a beautiful layout and then throw a Matchbox car on the layout. You just can't do that anymore. You got to get rid of the Hot Wheels. So,
can I just interrupt you there before you go on?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge statement. You can't just have the Hot Wheels cars on the layout anymore. That's a huge statement because
yeah.
No, I think you're right, because I'm looking at the 187th Vehicle Club here, and the February new products is an FDNY New York Fire Department fire apparatus truck, And I mean, it's just spectacular. But you're right. That's a big statement that you made, and you're 100% right. So I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. So, for instance, this week I just got those Burkina, Kenworth, and Peterbilt trucks in, and Bob was talking about, oh, you got to get these. So I got them, and I put the heat shields on that he sells, and we did a few other little mods to them, and they are fantastic models. Burkina's that German car, miniature model company.
Right.
And they are just, they're the cab overs, the flat face Kenworths, and then these Peterbilt 389s. And, those along with some of the better Athearn trucks that they've come out with recently. If you look on my website, my little Facebook page, you'll see I've got one of those East Coast Circuits Athearn fire trucks.
Yeah.
On there, all lit up with I don't know how many LEDs are on that thing.
So don't go too fast. So I was looking at that picture after you accepted me on your page, which I'm very appreciative of. You may live to regret that, but
never.
Yeah, this is really cool. So what exactly is this fire truck you're talking? It comes like this, does it?
Yeah. So this is like the bargain of the decade of the decade. It's basically it's an Athearn fire truck. And those are about, I don't know, $30, $35 from Athearn.
Right.
And they put all those LEDs in that truck. I don't know how they do it, but all of those are LEDs. You cannot see them when you're looking at it. And there's wires that come out underneath the truck, and you just wire it up underneath the layout. And mine's on a toggle switch. I can turn it on and off. And it is incredible, and they sell them for like $95.
And what's the name of the company?
East Coast Circuits, I think that's right.
David, you seem like a nice guy.
Yeah,
but I think you've kind of annoyed the living crap out of me tonight because there's so much cool stuff you've introduced me to. Kelly or Bruce, have either of you guys heard of Burkina vehicles?
I've heard of them before.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
And right now I'm staring at the East Coast Circuits
me too.
webpage, and holy cow.
I know, eh?
So I
hang on a minute. Here's this. I'm sorry to cut you off. I seem to do that a lot, but now here, I just had a vision for you guys, for Kelly and Bruce, and for the entire AML Nation. I see me going to the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, being super excited that my friend David is the vice principal French horn guy. And about halfway through the show, I'm going, stand up and go, yeah, go, David!
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you, Lionel, if you come, I will give you the grand tour of our hall. Our hall is pretty spectacular. And
well, there you go.
It is, you need to look it up sometime. The Meyerson, Meyerson, Meyerson Symphony Center. It's widely regarded as one of the top 3-4 halls in the nation, probably a top 10 concert hall in the world.
Wow.
So if you ever come, I'll give you the grand tour. But yeah, so East Coast Circuits, I had known them because I had bought a few of their they also make a crossing signal, for the
sure.
And I used those for a while, but they came out with these fire trucks, and I was at Springfield, and they had a bunch for sale, and they had just a few Athearn, and so I grabbed one.
Man, these I'm looking at the Ford F850, the older style, and I'm looking at the little video of it, East Coast Circuits, and I mean, oh my God, this thing is spectacular, and it's only $90.
It's unbelievable that they're able to sell them for that price.
Yeah. Advanced.
Yeah, somebody's doing a lot of work for $90. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to buy one of these. Come on.
Now you're going to have to go on their website and shop on the website.
Yeah.
And if you have your own fire truck, you can email them and you can ship your fire truck to them, and they'll put the stuff in for you and then ship it back. I think they told me it's like a 90-day turnaround, but they'll get it done and they'll ship it back to you. So I'm sending another one up to them that I'm going to have right behind the one that's installed. So I'll have two on the layout. So now,
we got to track down somebody from East Coast Circus, but we got to track down your buddy that owns the 187th truck. What is it called? He calls it Master Build.
Yeah, Master Built Models, Bob.
Yeah, we're gonna have to track him down too. And I mean,
the list is endless.
Oh my goodness gracious! You're not helping, David. You are not helping the situation here.
It's another rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it's another crazy. Yeah. I love this East Coast Circuits truck. Oh, and like you say, for a guy like you, that's not a. This is constantly my argument with Rob Arsenault. Hi, Rob. How you doing, buddy? He's working as he's listening to this. He's weathering he's doing some fantastic weathering job on another locomotive probably. And whenever we talk, he's always saying, occasionally he'll say about how much he charges. And I say, yeah, but for somebody that doesn't have time, it's well worth the value because what they get in return. And I mean, the same with this fire truck here. It's a $90 HO scale vehicle, but what they've done with the lights, it's kind of a no-brainer. For $90.
It's a great value. And you talk about Rob weathered one of my engines. You can see it on my page. It's a unit 363. Okay. But that's his work. I sent a locomotive up for him to do. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And how did you know of Rob Arsenault before you heard the podcast?
I think I was turned on to him from the podcast, and then I added, I followed him on Facebook and Instagram.
But that's how you found him originally, was from the podcast.
Yep, because he's in Canada, so that's another person that I wouldn't think to find. Right? I know. I think way down here in Texas.
I think that's the coolest part of the podcast is all the connections that people make. Like I've said 1,000 times, and I'll continue to say it. I don't care how the AML Nation got started. I don't care how it keeps going. I'm just glad I got to be part of it. It's so cool, so much fun. Boy, oh boy, I'm looking at this East Coast Circuits page, and I can't take my eyes off it.
And there's all kinds of there's fire trucks, there's rescue trucks, there is police cars,
utility trucks, all sorts of things.
I'm sure you could get like railroad. High rail trucks probably lit up, all kinds of things. It's just an incredible assortment. And I just think it's a great, great deal for what they offer. And then they sell other things like the grade crossing circuits and stuff. But it's so fun to add things like that to the layout. And what I try to tell people, I was a little turned off for a while about having to follow the prototype so closely. That to me takes some of the fun out of model railroading. Trying to recreate everything to a T when you only have a certain amount of room to do something. So you mentioned my Tex Ren, which is an independent Porsche dealer that I made up. And it's just a play on Texas and Ren, which is a Porsche thing. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to have a Porsche dealer from the late 80s on my layout. And so we came up with this little logo and we put it on a sign, and we have a Porsche dealer on the layout because that's something that interests me. And so I like to tell a story, not just about the Heyde, but about what my interests are in my life and what I like, makes me happy. So,
but I think that's exactly what your layout does. I mean, that's almost the perfect place to be if you have a particular prototype that you like. You're right. Like if you try to follow it right to the T, it can almost take some of the fun out of it because there might be some things you want to do. Like might be. Maybe nobody in your area owned that kind of a fire truck, but you want it anyways to put on the layout just because it's cool. I mean, there's so much cool stuff. Both you and Uncle Dave, you're both following the prototype, but in a fictional way, somewhat. You've got actual crossings and things like that, but you've also got, you've made up a little bit of a story to. I think that's exactly. But that's the thing. That's what the hobby is. It's everybody's interpretation.
Yeah, and you don't have room to follow a whole subdivision. Even if you have an 8,000 square foot basement, you're going to have to make concessions. And, I think people wait too long. They plan and they plan and they plan and they plan and they plan. And they're always sitting in their, armchair modeling. And they wait and they wait. And then they get to an age where, okay, now I have the means, I have the time, but do I have the energy to build this giant basement layout? And I made a conscious decision with 3 kids, 2 full-time jobs, and everything else going on, just to take the plunge and create something that's modest, but also can bring a lot of joy on those, nights where the kids are in bed and the wife just wants to read her book, and you can go out to the train room and keep creating. And I think that's something that a lot of people make the mistake. They don't jump in, and they're too scared of like, well, I'm not going to accurately follow the prototype to a T. I have a stub end yard. I don't have and that's solely because I don't have a room for a full yard. I don't have the room, but I wanted to have a small yard to switch and bring cars in and out of to operate. And, that was one, compromise I had to make, on my layout. And I think that's okay. I'm good with that, and this won't be my last layout I build. It's like Don left, the Northeast for Florida, fully knowing that Florida is like Texas and there's no basements, and he was going to have to make some compromises, but he seems very happy from what he said on the podcast, about how it's all turned out, and it's beautiful. And I think that's really important for people to realize that you can jump into this hobby and it can be small shelf layout. You look at somebody like Lance Meinheim or Mindheim, and how he's able to create a really beautiful layout on a very small area, his two layouts.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing that for so many years, the model railroad hobby press was, putting forth the idea that you have to have a big basement, you have to fill that thing with every single inch you can to be covered by railroad. And a lot of people were paralyzed. I can't do it, but more and more, and you look at the popularity of some of these shelf layout groups on Facebook, more and more people are realizing, hey, I can build something that's, 20 feet long by 16 inches wide, and I can have a lot of fun operating that layout, and I can build it in a reasonable amount of time, and I can get it more or less complete rather than worrying about trying to fill in, 800, 900, 1,000 square feet of basement with the railroad. It's, and then, I'm glad to see more and more in the press now, and in particular model railroad hobbyists, some of them, that they're promoting, modules and things like that. Joe with his one module approach, things like that. And I think people are in a stage now, they may not have the room, but they realize they can still have a lot of fun doing it. And as time goes on, I think we'll see more and more small layouts that are going to be great layouts that people do. And, if it takes a few years and you get complete and have fun operating and stuff and decide to build something else, no time lost. You're still enjoying the hobby. You're trying something different, but you're biting it off in manageable chunks.
Well, I think
absolutely.
I think that's a great point. And would this point not be to follow along with that? Is are shelf layouts not more fun now because there's so many more excellent details that you can add to it, like this fire truck? I mean, if you built an HO scale, 10 by 16 inch, 1.5 foot wide layout, I mean, you got these cool fire trucks to buy. I mean, half the fun of the hobby is finding stuff and adding it to your layout. You don't have to build every single thing. I mean, if you find something cool to add to it. I mean, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to go off track because I'm on this East Coast circuits, and they got O-scale vehicles, and they've got like Pennsylvania State Trooper police cars, that you'll see, and they're with the flashing lights, and that's exactly what they look like if they're following you with the flashing lights. Not
that you would know anything about that. You've heard guys talk about it.
Yeah, I've heard guys talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say your comment about shelf layouts. I think part of details are part of it, but I think part of it is the great advantages in the controls we have not operate layouts. So before you were stuck with a wired throttle that you were tethered to a certain space, or you had to unplug and wander along with. Mm-hmm. Now with wireless throttles and using phones and things like that, it makes it that much easier to follow your train. We got better running motive power, things like that. It all accounts to the technology is there, and we're using it now to get better.
And go ahead.
Yeah, and now with this printing, where you can print things, the resin printers or whatever they are. And for instance, your favorite guy, Scott Thornton, I bought your buddy Scott. I bought a bunch of his derails for the layout.
Okay.
And he also printed some different switch knobs for the proto throttle. I bought some of those when I saw him at the St. Louis RPM last summer. And there's just so much detail. You're absolutely right that what you can add now to a scene, and it makes it a lot easier with all the advances in this technology. But yeah, the smaller the layout, I think another thing that people don't think about is that this hobby, if you're going to build a basement empire, I mean, that is a serious financial commitment. And if you start when you're younger, building a smaller layout, you can reuse so much of that. You won't be able to probably reuse the track necessarily, or, maybe the foam that you used, but you can use the benchwork again if you are smart about it. You can use all your buildings again. And when you decide to actually, you have the time or the means or a combination of those, you can then really build that big layout, and you're not putting forth a huge financial commitment to build a 3,000 square foot double deck layout or something, these basement empires. It's amazing to me how long, if you really do it right, how long it would take to build something like that. I mean, years and years and years, unless you don't have, you're retired or you have the time to build something like that. It just takes a long time.
Well, and the beauty of a smaller layout is you can have as much fun as the guy building the 40 by 40 layout. I mean, you can have just as much fun with the locomotives and the controllers and building the scene. I mean, I'm looking at your scene here. I see that you love having the night scenes too. You got a couple of night scenes on here.
Yeah, there's some great shots there.
Thanks. Yeah, my goal is to do an operations session in the dark. So I'm going to have the whole layout lit at some point, business lights and stuff. And we want to operate in the dark a little bit. And I just think that adds a whole nother kind of romantic aspect to thinking about model railroading or railroading in general, having it at dusk or dawn, or because they operate a lot at night, I mean, they're working all the time, 24/7. So
yeah, I wouldn't mind getting to that session because I spend most of my time in the dark. I'm looking at this one here, and I just suddenly realized 5 minutes ago, I'm looking at this picture of the MKT, the red and white one, number 330, and then it's in a lumber yard, and suddenly I realized the background shed is part of the background. It's not actually on the layout. I mean, you've already acquired quite a knack of having the background fit into the scene. Now, are you getting your backgrounds from somewhere? Or?
Yeah, so I buy my backgrounds. I tried to paint a background, and I was very, very, very disappointed. I watched a lot of videos on these guys, and it's like I'll watch Bob Ross. I'm just going to put a fluffy cloud right there.
Yeah.
And I'm
some
like,
happy trees here.
Yeah, some happy trees here. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. So I just started Googling, looking up, and I use a company called modelrailroadbackdrops.com. I think that's what it's called. Let me look here. But, and he has a ton of options. I think he's based in Tennessee. Let's see if that's it.
I'm looking now. Yeah, that's
it.
Is
that the guy the average Don was telling us about?
No, he's up in, I believe
he's up somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah, this is, I see it, model railroad it's railroadbackdrops.com.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's it. And,
gee whiz, here's another one.
It's great. It's great. And so I don't have it on the website, but I have a river scene. Let me see. It may be on there, but there's a river scene I have, which is over the Brazos River, which is a river that goes through the middle of Texas at Waco. And that's where I grew up, in Waco, Texas. So we were able to blend in with the backdrop, like the Cotton Belt Bridge that was downriver from the Katy Bridge, which I have on my layout. And then we're going to blend in the tallest building in Waco, which is called the Alico Building, and stuff like that on the backdrops. So he's able to do some custom work, but then I use some of the generic backdrops, just tree-lined backdrops. But everything on my layout is from him. And They really work well. They blend well.
And he's got videos about how to apply. Are they sticky back, or do you put water on them or something?
So you have multiple options. The ones that I buy are sticky back. So you have to pull this backing off, and then you have to put them on. And I'm telling you, once they're on, and it is very temperamental. I recommend, if you decide to go with them, to have at least another person with you to help you with it. It's not easy. You can do what he calls a wet method, where you spray your board with some water and then put it down, which gives you just a little bit more working time, or you can do the dry method. I started with the wet method, and we've gone to the dry method when I have another buddy with me. We're able to do it pretty well.
Right.
But
yes, I see him peeling it off now. And
yeah.
now he's spraying the wall with water, and wow. But look at this. I didn't know these guys existed. Did either of you, Kelly or Bruce, did you know of these guys?
Nope.
No, I hadn't heard of these guys, and we got to be careful. We'll upset Don's friend. We go off down to the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
exactly. We're gonna get Ray on the podcast more than once.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good backdrop companies now. This was just the one that I looked through, and I said, okay, I can make Texas work with this. And that was the whole goal. I said, okay, what looks like Central Texas? Okay, this looks like Central Texas. I'm good with this. Let's order it. And they're not cheap. But the backdrop, people don't understand how much a backdrop adds to the layout. I mean, it transforms your layout. When you put a backdrop in, it makes the layout come to life.
Oh yeah, that's you look at what Don Ivers has done, what you've done with yours. Certainly, Dave Abelys and Bob Fowlfield. Bob recently put photo backdrops on his layout, his CP Galt sub layout. Dave Abelys, that you look at his, it really makes a scene. And yours here, this night scene, this is the one I think I commented on. I had to look for all to figure out it wasn't a prototype photo, because it just looks like a sort of a hazy, foggy night scene. And then I started looking. Oh no, that's a big giant caboose hobbies throw there. But my first look was, wow, this is great.
Yeah,
but it's something that it adds depth to the layout. It adds the realism to the layout. You're not stuck with trying to, as you say, paint things, and it's in exchange for a little money, you come up with a great way to expand and improve the realism of your layout.
Yeah,
these guys also build layouts. Jeez.
I think he does. He actually asked me if I was interested in going to work for him occasionally, but I told him I don't have time for that. But yeah.
And why was that? Because he saw photos of your layout?
I was sending him a few photos thanking him for his product, and just wanted to show him how well it turned out. But
you don't have anything to do.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think there's some things you shouldn't scrimp on. And for me, I made a real decision that the backdrop was one of those things that I really wanted to have some really nice backdrops, because once I got that first wall up, I was just like, oh my gosh, this changes everything. And, it just, for me, I go out there and I'm like, I know that this, for instance, the picture with Tex Wren in the background, that was probably in Tennessee somewhere. But if you look at it, it blends in fine, and it's believable. And, again, not following exactly what it looked like in the 80s in Waco, Texas, I felt like, okay, this is close enough. This makes me happy, because my end goal, and I'm kind of an impatient guy, my end goal is to get it 80% scenic, 90% scenic.
Right.
And I want to start operating. I want to get together and have fun and drink beer and joke around with my buddies and move cars around and just have a good night. I've got a TV underneath the layout. We can put TV on and watch the game while we're switching cars out. And that's really what I want to have. It's model railroading is so much more fun when you have buddies in the hobby. And
well, and don't we all, though? I mean, we all have, and we're having tons more buddies. I mean, I bet you if you think about how many people you've met in the last 10 years as opposed to who you knew before that, probably blow your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know Kelly now. What? I said was I know Kelly. So I got a question for you, David. This is not a toughie, but you love you love the hobby. The hobby means a ton to you. Obviously, you love the fellowship. You love building the layout. You love scenery. I mean, even the pictures on your Facebook page of some of the wiring. I mean, it's really neat and clean, and you're proud of that. But I'm assuming you've been in the hobby since you were a kid.
Mostly, off and on, yeah.
Yeah. So what is it? What do you think it is about model railroading? Is it now becoming so much more of the friendships, or like what is it about? Have you ever thought to yourself like why is it that I like this so much?
Well, so I grew up just south of Waco in a little town called Hewitt, Texas, right off I-35. And back then, kids went outside and played all day, right? I mean, we played baseball in the backyard. We rode our bikes all over the place. We stayed out, it's 100 degrees out in Texas in the summer, but we're outside all the time. Well, we would ride our bikes up through the field before they built houses and up to the Katy tracks. And we would, the old wives' tale of, hey, if you put a penny on the track, it might derail the train. Well, we would do stuff like that and then hide and wait for the trains to come by. And I think model railroading, it comes back to when you're a child. I also remember, building layouts with my dad when I was a kid. When I was born in Morgantown, West Virginia, my dad taught at West Virginia University. So, we had a basement and my dad had a layout in the basement. So I remember that. I remember that as a young kid, 5 years old, going down to the basement with him. And then we moved to Texas. He got a lot more busy with his job, but we also had a small layout for a little while. And, I think it takes you back to your childhood a little bit, but also, everybody can see a train and say, wow, that's really neat. I mean, I don't think anybody would be in front of a train going 60 miles an hour, and you're at a crossing and not say, wow, that's really impressive. I think it's impressive. I think it's a creative thing. I think a lot of people have jobs that maybe aren't as creative and they want to have a creative outlet. And then I think, a lot of us have the same shared experiences when we were kids of seeing a model for the first time or doing something with our dad or our mom or our brother or whatever. And, I think it's, I don't know if I can put my finger on one specific thing. I think for everybody, it's a little different, but we all think, wow, this is cool. And it takes us back to a simpler time, maybe where we didn't have the stresses of our job or of life or, other things going on, where it was just simpler. You didn't have to go out and make money to support yourself. And so, as I've gotten older, and I've been able to have the means now to build a layout the way I want to, it's such a really important thing for me. I was talking to my wife last night and, it's important not to, we have to have a conversation, not to get too personal, but we have to have a conversation occasionally where I have to be able to kind of schedule my time out there. And I think it's important to have a good balance of a little bit of modeling time, but not to the point where you're ignoring your family or you're not, helping out enough. And so that can be challenging, but we have a really good relationship about that. And she said to me, I know how important this is to you. And I said, yeah, it's really important to me. And it, I think we talked a little bit in Springfield, Lionel, not to get too personal, but I had to have surgery on my lip. I had a little nerve issue in my lip. So I had to have surgery. So I was out of the orchestra for 3 months and I was really down in the dumps. And the thing that kept me going was model railroading. It kept my mind busy because I couldn't play. I'm frustrated, right? I can't work. I have, I'm still teaching my students at SMU, Southern Methodist University. I teach there too, but I was still teaching, but I couldn't play for them. I couldn't work. I was on health leave. So what did I do? I really worked on the layout. My friend Bob came over. He's retired. And we would spend Tuesday and Thursday and we would work on the layout during the day while the kids were in school. And that really kept me going. And I think when you're having a tough time, like, the pandemic has really got you down or whatever's going on in life, you're able to go out and work on your railroad. That's really valuable. I think it's really invaluable, actually. You can't put a price on that. And it's been such a wonderful thing for me. And meeting other people like you guys and my friends in the club in Dallas and Chris and everybody else in Dallas, it's just great because you can talk to them about common interests. And it's amazing because a lot of the common interests I have in trains, we also have common interests in other things. Like we think, like flying a private jet is really cool.
Yeah.
And even if we don't agree politically on stuff, not to go down that rabbit hole, but we still have enough in common where we don't become polarized with each other, right?
That's one of the things I notice about the nation is nobody really wants to ruin a good thing. So the politics and religion doesn't even come into it because they're more interested in the friendships than they are in their opinions.
Right. Yeah. We don't even talk about it. And we know where each other lie generally because, we're good enough friends, but we just don't talk. We don't care. We don't care.
Yeah.
And I think that's really great. And I think the U.S. especially needs more of that. We need to not care about that so much and try to find more common ground than not. So
yeah, so it's something you almost can't explain. I mean, that was a great explanation, actually. What you did there is like, about you couldn't work for 3 months, but it was always there. It's something that's always there. And I think the fact that the products have improved is so much. I think it makes it easier for people to enjoy the hobby. I mean, there's always hand wringing about, people aren't doing enough building. There's not enough hands on and stuff like that. But I tend to disagree because I think, somebody like you, like I think actually I'm starting to think based on, what Don Iris has done and what you've done, like 12 by 20, 13 by 22, 15 by 20 is like a perfect size. You can get a lot of in HO scale anyways, and probably in S and even in O scale. You can get you can pack a lot in there, but it's not, you can get it done to a point where it's not overwhelming, which is really,
absolutely,
absolutely, really important.
And, it's like, and Don has a double deck layout. So, for me, it takes about, 4 minutes to go around my layout if I'm going at track speed. So even if I just want to go out and run trains around a circle, it's still long enough where I'm not, it's not a 4x8. And for Don, it's probably, 10 or 12 minutes because he has a double deck layout with a helix. So it takes him longer, but that's a lot. You can do a lot in that. And I think I have about plans for 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I probably have 12 industries to switch in my layout. 12 to 14 is going to be somewhere in that range. So, there's enough to do. There's enough to do, especially if you're just out there by yourself one night or it's you and another guy,
Yeah. And you like running the layout just by yourself? You must enjoy that just as much as, I mean, it's cool to see the stuff. It's cool to get, for some reason or other, there's something about, even if you're basic at electronics, like you said, I can get it going, but it's not my favorite thing by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, like I've always been a model railroader first and rail fan second. And I mean, I'm like you, scenery is really what I enjoy the most. And creating that scene and the feeling of it. And operation, I like operation too. But I think at that size of a layout, you can create something without it becoming overwhelming. You get to dip your hands into everything. And even if you do something electronically, it doesn't have to be a massive project.
Exactly. And I know my weaknesses and my strengths. And I think that's another thing that we all need to think about occasionally is if there's something you really don't have any clue how to do, like for me, I put pictures of the wiring. My wiring was not very good. It's kind of a musician. I'm very musician brain, right? I think it's right brain. I would never be an engineer. I don't have that capability. But my friend Bob is, and he's an electrical engineer. And when he saw my wiring, he said, "Oh, no, we're not going to do this." And so he showed me and he taught me how to use, all these different things underneath the layout that I had no clue existed because nobody had ever helped me with that. And so I've watched him work and I've learned so much. And now I feel somewhat competent underneath the layout. And I think that's something that model railroaders need to realize, that ask for help, like join a club get out there and meet people, because you will find people that will help you so much, and you can give back to them with your strengths. And, I people call me and ask me about scenery stuff. I say, I'll do it this way. You could also do it this way or do it that. And, that's what I enjoy and what I really feel most confident about. And, but there's also things that I drag my feet on. And that's I've talked to you about this before. Building buildings. I have no joy in that at all. And for some reason, I love doing scenery, but I hate building buildings.
Right.
So I asked a friend of mine, Ron Wilhelm, who is another member of our club. He loves building buildings, loves it. And I had a Katy Depot that was a wood craftsman kit, Lake Junction Models. That's another company. Do you know about this company?
No, I don't know about this.
Oh,
Okay.
Come on, man.
So you need, go ahead. You better do a search for that too. Lake Junction Models. So he built this beautiful MKT Depot for me, and I just got it this week, and it is fantastic. And I thanked him, and I bought him dinner, and he didn't want anything else. And so he said, just give me tickets to the symphony sometime. I said, anytime you want to go, I'll get you the best seats I can get you. And, it's friends like that where you find your strengths. And if somebody wants to help you along the way, you thank them profusely and you accept the help, especially if they're good at it. And I think that really helps your layout move forward, because I will drag and drag and drag about building buildings, but I'm okay with it. I built most of them on my layout. But I'm not great at it. And,
well, that's kind of a discussion I've had with Uncle Dave, is that, I was kind of a guy where I had to know how to do everything. Like anything that was done on my layout, I had to do it, because I always felt like if I didn't know how it worked and then it broke down, I wouldn't know how to do it. And I'm even kind of the same way on the podcast. I'm kind of a micromanager kind of guy. Although for some reason, really like that, I'm not like that with my day-to-day business. I don't know why. But I'm kind of a micromanager with this kind of stuff. But Uncle Dave, he's very much involving other people in the building and operating of his layout. And I'll say to him, man, I don't know how you do it. And he says, well, it's no different than the real railroad. Do you think the guys that are building the stations know how to signal the railroad, or the guys that are signaling the railroad know how to build the stations? It's like every railroad needs people to make it work as good as it can.
Absolutely right. Yep. And I remember him talking about that on the last podcast recently.
Yeah.
It's just, the help is invaluable, and it almost takes a little bit of a load off too. Like, you have that in the back of your mind. Oh, I got to do that still. Oh, I got to do that still. And if you find somebody that really wants to do it, that just frees up your creative juices or your enthusiasm to do something else on the layout while that's being done. And you thank them and you offer them, whatever you can, as a friend.
Sure.
But that's something that I know I wouldn't have done as good of a job that Ron did on that for us.
So I did a lousy job of asking you about the 187th club. So is it basically based out of Texas, and they got members all over, or?
I'm not sure if it's based here. You'd have to have Bob on to tell you that. Bob runs the website, so the website is run through here, but it's a national or international group.
And don't some of your friends, one of your friends own Lone Star Models?
Yes. So that's Bob and Dan. They own that company together. Okay. So the Lone Star Models is a company that they did a lot of really nice truck trailers.
Right. Yes.
For a long time they were pre-built, but they're not doing the RTR stuff anymore. They're all kits now. But there's a grain kit, and there's a flatbed trailer kit. And then there's also some shorter stuff for like 2-axle, lighter duty trucks.
Right. So these are all kits now, eh?
Yeah. They're all kits. They're daunting kits, but once you get the hang of them, boy, they turn out really, really, really nice. They are fantastic kits.
So have you built a couple?
I've started one. and Bob warned me. He said, these are tough, David. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to give it the old college try. But Bob's knowledge of trucks is pretty amazing. He's working on right now for me. We have an old Heyde fuel truck. It's green, and it's an old International Heyde fuel truck. And he has a friend that 3D printed these, bed, the fuel bed, and then we're getting a resin cab from some guy in Germany, and we're putting these fuel trucks together, and it's going to be fantastic when it's done. We're going to have Circus City do the decals on them, and it's really a cool project. But he has projects like this going all the time. Bob built a couple of my trucks on my layout, my Weyerhaeuser lumberyard trucks that you can see in that night picture.
Yeah.
Those were built by Bob. Bob built those for me.
And so he's getting a cab from with this one truck, he's getting a cab from someplace in Germany?
Yeah, I guess it's a resin printer or a resin guy, a guy that, CAD print. I don't know what it's called, the 3D printing.
I have these discussions like the one we're having tonight, and I just think to myself, nobody has any idea how this hobby is going to grow because, I mean, you have everything that's happening so fast. I mean, this hobby is huge. And it's just been hidden in the basement for years. I'm absolutely convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that Al Gore built the internet specifically for model railroading.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right. What haven't we asked you tonight? I mean, go ahead.
I got a question. What did you use for your fascia on your layout?
So that's just what's it called? The just that bendy board stuff. What do they call it?
Bendy board. You can get that 4x8.
Well, actually, there's something called bendy board.
Is there bendy board? What's it called? It's just
gator board.
No, Masonite.
Masonite.
Oh, Masonite. Okay.
Yeah, I always forget the name of it. Masonite. Yeah,
bendy board.
There is actually a product called bendy board they use in the building.
Oh, is there really?
Oh, is there?
There is. Yes.
Bendy
for
board.
making curved on arches and coves and stuff like that.
So the fascia is Masonite, and then the backdrop is mounted. The backdrop's mounted on Masonite too.
So how did you get the idea for this PVC? I love this photo. What it is the track is going around a curve. It's on the edge of the layout, on the edge of the bend. You can see the bendy board, and then there's ballast and track. And then what you did is you had it put a signal beside the track, but you put a little protrusion of the layout out, and you say here you added a small PVC pipe to your fascia. How did you add that pipe to the fascia?
It looks like an elbow.
It is an elbow. It is an elbow pipe. Yeah, PVC elbow pipe. Yeah, sometimes the cheapest things work the best. So Bob, my friend Bob, the electrician, electrical engineer, he said, why don't we put a pipe here? And I said, okay, that's a great idea, because we didn't have room for the signal. The signals came after the layout obviously was wired up, and I decided, the track was laid, and I decided, okay, I really want signals on the layout. We need a signal here before the switch. So he said, let's drill a hole. So we used one of those hole dozers that you put in the drill, and just got it right at the right size, the right width. And you stick that PVC pipe in there, and then you run the wires up through the foam, through the side of the bendy board up into the top there. And what we did is we cut out a little piece of styrene, and we carved it in so it slid right into the top of that PVC pipe, and drilled a hole down in to that styrene and ran the wires through, and then put the signal there and ballasted around the signal, and it's good to go. And then I painted the PVC pipe, and it blends right in. And my layout is pretty high. For most people, you're going to be looking at trains almost just below eye level. So it's probably about 55 inches, 58 inches up.
Wow.
It's pretty high up. So you're rated almost at eye level. So most people walking around aren't going to knock into it, because it's kind of above where you would bump into it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I got a lot of comments when I first posted it. Oh, you're gonna knock that thing right off. And we have had some as you guys well know, and I'm starting to become this way. I've got to watch it, but model railroaders aren't thin guys.
People of
So I've got some people of size in my layout room, and we haven't knocked it over yet. So I've got 2 of them on the layout like that, and
that's really cool. It's really cool. It actually really adds. It really adds something. I really like how that signals, out from the edge of the layout. It just really adds something to. That's a very cool. It's a very cool effect. I mean, I'd almost, if I was building a layout, I'd almost do that on purpose, just because it's so cool the way it sits there. It's very, very slick.
Yeah, I really like it. It really looks nice in person, and I was very pleased with how it turned out. But when you don't have room for stuff, and that's always a constant issue for model railroaders. Well, I don't really have room for that. Everybody says that. You just have to think outside of the box a little bit, and that was one of those cases where you got to have signals on either side there, and you don't have room to put the signal, so you had to create something. And there's compromises. We've had to do some field signals, which means the signal's on the opposite side of where it normally would be. But in general,
or the field signal. How do you know that term?
Well, I read about that in Dave's book.
Oh, okay.
And other places too, but
Dave's book.
Dave's book, yep. And I'm looking forward to Dave's new book that's coming out on Yards.
Yeah, and he's trying to convince me. He says, "Well, I don't think the next book will sell as well." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
It will sell.
It'll sell just the same as.
He's not saying you think he'll sell 100.
Yeah. But
he's got a pretty good marketing team in place.
He's like a puppy. It's hard to, like the day I went with him to Penn Station, and he's got all these guys working for him, and I'm thinking, if you guys knew the other Dave that I know, the model railroad Dave, he's like 2 different guys. He's this guy that runs 155 stations, and all the people needed to do that. And then he's this guy that's just got so much enthusiasm for the hobby. He sounds very much like you, David.
Yeah,
a lot of enthusiasm.
I know he's got a pretty high up job, and I'm sure there's a lot of stress with that. But I'm sure we're a lot alike. We're about the same age. We have families. And we have pretty high stress jobs. So, I want to meet Dave someday. That's one of my goals is to see his layout someday. But
it's like going into the Keebler cookie tree. It's where the Keebler cookie factory. It's exactly like that. You go. It's this beautiful old home, and you go in. You go in there, and because it's such an old home, the foundation is big and thick, and the stairs are kind of steep, and you kind of have to go down a little bit at an angle, and you walk in, and it's like, and he's got it well lit, beautiful ceiling. He's got the room finished as well as he can, and it's kind of like, there's this beautiful model railroad. It's like, and this hole in this. It's just, Dave is Dave. Anyways, his book's gonna sell out, and that book will sell out, but the videos they were paying him literally like child slave labor. I thought it was illegal.
Yeah, he's had a lot of really great articles and nice cover shots recently in the magazines, because I subscribe to all the magazines, and I see his layout on there quite a bit now, and it's been great. And I have to tell you, Lionel, I've really enjoyed his podcasts. They've been fantastic.
You just kind of start him up and away you go. But yours has been very good too. We're gonna have to do 2 separate endings, because I don't know if this is gonna end up on the Patreon channel with all the good stuff, or on going to be an episode, depending on when we get to it, where it fits in the. But this has been a ball. I mean, you're very much like Dave. You're a kind of guy that has a job that you have to really perform. Dave has to really perform, and the model railroad gives you a real release that pressure, and it's just a very relaxing atmosphere. Same for Dave, just a very relaxing atmosphere. And I know Rich Winiski keeps track. He says I mentioned Dave's name. He thinks I'm mentioning Dave's name. He doesn't say that, but I know he's keeping track of how many times I mentioned Dave. So now I'm going to start mentioning Rich Winiski too, or Wesniski. Somehow I'm mispronouncing his last name.
Rich W.
Yeah,
Rich W.
Soon he's just going to become the Whiz, and he'll just have to live with that.
The Whiz. That's good. I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay.
So I think, it just comes down to the thing that I just want to, get across is just if you guys are on the fence out there and you're just not sure about it, just jump in and go for it. And you're going to make mistakes, but I've had so much benefit to just going for it. And I've only been at this layout for 2 years.
Really?
3 years.
You've only been doing this layout for 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, about 2.5 years. Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. So, you just jump in and you go for it. And it's brought me so much joy. And, I am not perfect by any means. I'm not trying to be, because that to me is too much like work.
Yeah,
and so, jump in and go for it. And you're going to make mistakes, but you can rip it out.
Yeah, well, like you say, you're not perfect, but there's where you and I have a difference.
It's true. You are perfect.
But for 2.5 years, you've done all this in 2.5 years. You're like Irish.
Yeah.
You're like Don Irish.
Yeah, he's like Irish.
Yeah. I think I started. I guess it's probably been 3 years now. I think I started 19. So
wow. And so it looks like it's getting to be very complete already.
I would say I'm about 65% there.
Okay.
I've got one area where it's just track, and that's a pretty small area though. So
I'd love to see your track plan. You should.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have a track plan somewhere?
I do, and I'll post it. I'll put it up.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple plan. I really, you talk. Some of your guests have talked about negative space, and I really made an effort to have some negative space, and I think that's really important on a layout, to have fields, to have, I have a cornfield, I have a cow pasture, I have, and it defines each area, and that has really, helped with the layout too. So if you have the negative space, you can move pretty quickly, getting it set up,
That was one of the things our buddy Stephen Hayworth did in Chicago. He built a DNRGW, I'm pretty sure, layout, and we're going to get him back on the podcast, get an update from him. Stephen, if you're out there, get ready, buddy. But he pretty much covered his entire layout with ground foam and basic rock scenery, and then went from there. And it looked great because it was almost finished. So like you say, your negative spaces give you a chance to cover some ground pretty quickly.
It does. And, static grass, gosh, that has been so great. I love static grass now, all the different lengths you can use and the colors. And the negative space really helps the scene, because if you think about a railroad, there is a lot of negative space around a railroad generally, unless you're really in the middle of a city. And I wanted to model more of the countryside than a city area. So for me, when I see a railroad out in the country, for me, it brings a lot of, peace and joy. And so I wanted to do that with my layout. So
there's another thing that's made a big difference in layouts. The latest, even in the last 3 or 4 years, all the different scenic materials that are now available to users.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Just using the grass and the foam. I mean, for me, the foam carving was transformational. When I saw Ken Patterson talking about foam carving a few years ago, some people use the blue foam. I prefer the pink foam, the 1 inch or 2 inch, 2 inch foam sheets that you can get at the hardware store in Texas. It's in Home Depot, but those 4x8 sheets aren't cheap. But I carved my entire layout out of that foam, and so I'm not using cork at all. You carve your track, your track profile, and you mark your track, and then you carve around it to give the feeling of the the elevation, and then you just use caulking and put the track down, and you're good to go. And you don't need to use cork anymore or any of those kind of products. You can do it all in the foam. And we've done some mountain scenes at our club out of foam, and I carved giant mountains out of just stacking foam. And it has really, really been a great thing to have for the hobby. So.
And what about on February the 19th? this picture of your music stand with the AML.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that was recently. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a post right now. And so we're about to play a concert, and
this is just
said,
before it started, the concert, because I can see people
just
in the
just before it started, and I had an AML sticker, I think, or no, it was a magnet,
right?
A magnet that you gave me, and there you go, there it is. So now you can see what it's like looking out on stage when you're performing for 2,000 people or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So David, I got a concert question for you.
Oh no!
Sure. Here we go.
Oh my god!
Here we go.
Oh my god!
We got the Rogue Valley Symphony here, and I've gone to a number of times.
All right, time out.
Wait a minute.
No, time out. You're trying right out of the box. We're talking about a guy in the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Hey, we got the Rogue Valley. Okay, go ahead.
The question I have is,
okay, yeah.
When the the symphony's all seated and they're all waiting for the conductor to come out,
right?
Why do they clap for the conductor when he hasn't done anything yet?
That's actually a good question. That's just concert etiquette. So
is it?
We have it's just tradition. So
plus he's not doing all the work.
Yeah.
You guys are doing
plus everybody local's thrilled that they found they found a conductor that would come to Medford.
It just it just depends on the conductor. Some conductors think they do all the work. Other conductors don't think that. But so they have like a tradition, right? The tradition is when you're about to start a program, first thing is the lights go down in the hall. Mm-hmm. It gets dark. Stage lights come up. It gets bright on stage. The first person to come out is the concertmaster. The concertmaster is the first chair violinist. Okay, the concertmaster is the highest paid member of the orchestra. They're the ones that make the big bucks in the orchestra, and so they come out because they're responsible. It's kind of a tradition, and they're responsible for the the violin section, which is the largest section in the orchestra, and they're many times very, very talented. They're always, they're also on the hot seat all the time, and they're expected to be really fantastic. So the stress level is off the charts in the major orchestras for the concertmaster. But they'll come out, and the audience always claps for the concertmaster. So when the first person comes out, it's usually the concertmaster.
Right.
Concertmaster will come out, everybody claps. The concertmaster takes a bow, and then he or she turns, and we tune right. to concert A. And usually there's 2 or 3 tuning notes. So the brass usually tune first with the woodwinds, and then the strings. Sometimes there'll be 2 A's for the low strings and then for the high strings. And then the oboe sounds the A, right? So the oboe is the one that gives the A. And then once we're tuned, then the conductor comes out, and the conductor will also get applause. And we stand. So the orchestra stands at the beginning of the concert when the conductor comes out. So I think it's supposed to be like a sign of respect, I think. I don't really know the answer, though, actually, why we do that. But it's tradition. And, of course, orchestral music has been around since the 1700s. So I don't know when it started like that. But we stand for the conductor when he comes out, and then he bows. And then we sit and we start the program. So, and then in the second half, they do the same thing, but we don't stand at the beginning of the second half. So when the conductor comes out, we just sit, and he still gets his bow.
So is the oboe guy, is he traditionally Canadian?
Yeah.
Because he does the A?
Yeah, that's right. Wow, that was a deep dive, but yes. Yeah. Oboe players are highly neurotic individuals. I mean, I could give you all kinds of stories, but oboe players, their reeds are really temperamental, and they spend hours and hours and hours in the reed room, gouging bamboo or whatever, cane. It's cane. And then making the reeds by hand, scraping the reeds, getting them to sound just right. They have to have different reeds for different temperatures, different reeds for different humidity. The principal oboe is also a very highly paid member of the orchestra because of that. They're working in the reed room all the time. That to me is probably the least favorite instrument in the orchestra, just because of that. They have so much reed making time that they have to be working on their reeds. So, but the football pool. Actually, we usually do a fantasy football league every year. I have won one year. I came in second last year. We didn't do it this past year, I think, because of COVID. We also lost a really dear member to cancer. Not to get too dark, but he was one of our big football pool guys, and he passed away from multiple myeloma. So I think we kind of just took a year off. It was a really kind of a tough year for us. So in the brass section. So they're coming out with a film about him called A Song for Hope. And his name was Ryan Anthony, and he played in the Canadian Brass. So you've probably heard of the Canadian Brass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was one of the trumpet players in the Canadian Brass for many years, and then he came and he was our principal trumpet. And I sat next to him for about 13, 14 years. So he was a really wonderful guy, and we miss him greatly, but he was really, it was very inspiring. I know how much
young guy. He was a young guy, eh?
He was, when he passed away, he was probably around
51.
51. Yeah. So
there he is, right here on you don't have to look too far. You put in Ryan Anthony, and there he is, American trumpet player.
Yep. So he was a really great guy, and so it was tough for the orchestra. We lost 2 members that year to cancer, but it was a tough year. But yeah, we do the football pool. We the brass section, we kind of keep it light. We like to have fun back there. So
yeah. So I see me now. I'm looking at this picture, and I see me probably front row, third level, off to the right, and just when you get to a part that's important for you, I stand up and go, yeah, go.
and you have a Leafs jersey on too.
Yeah. I tell you what, you guys come see me. I'll get you those really expensive box seats up in the. I'll get you the best stuff right there.
All right, cool.
Front and center. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, what did you think about this? It's a lot of fun, eh?
Too many rabbit holes.
Indeed. Rabbit holes.
Yeah.
I can give you a summary if you need one for all the places you need to go look now.
Okay. I have one quick final question.
Sure.
Are you saddened by the recent turn of events in the railroad world with CP taking over your beloved MKT?
You mean the KCS? Yeah.
Or KCS?
Yeah. The KCS runs right by my house.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not really. I like the CP. I think it's kind of a neat railroad. I saw that they had a kind of a documentary on the CP on YouTube. I guess it was run in Canada, maybe. Can't remember the name of the name of the program, but it was about the CP running through up there where the virtual rail fan is up there in what's it, Revelstoke.
Oh, Revelstoke.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What beautiful country, man.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Fantastic. But no, I mean, it'll be nice to see other things because we get sick of seeing UP and BNSF and KCS is kind of a small railroad compared to those. So
yeah, I apologize for mixing them up.
No, that's okay. I like the KCS. They don't have a huge following. It seems like around here, though, with the model railroad. It's really weird.
There is a ton of regional railroads that don't have... there is so much to model out there. I mean, there are so many cool regional railroads, like so many cool. This hobby is going to explode, and we're all going to be covered in model railroad goo.
Yeah.
And whether I'm in a box seat or front row on the third tier, I'm still going to stand up. Yeah, go!
Yeah.
And I'll be
Anytime.
going, David! And they'll be looking away.
Oh, they'll be all looking at it. Oh, man.
I can tell you.
There'll be some people come, sir, can you please follow me?
Yeah.
We played one concert one time, and somebody had brought an elderly gentleman to our concert, and we're playing something really soft, and all of a sudden you hear this guy yell out, "Let's go home now. I'm ready to go." and I was just like, oh, we started laughing. It's just like, we've seen all kinds of things. So you would just be another storyline.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then I wouldn't admit to knowing you until much later that evening. Yeah.
Much later down at the police station.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I won't say anything, but then afterwards you'll feel fairly relaxed and you'll introduce me to some of the musicians. And when you introduce me to the oboe player, I'll go, so what part of Canada are you from? Hey?
Wow.
I like it. That's funny.
Kelly, can you give out our email address?
Yes, if you want to reach us through the wonders of the internet with the email, our email address is modeler'slife@gmail.com. That's modeler with one L like violin, not two L's like cello.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, nice orchestra reference there.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was working on that the whole show.
No, I wasn't.
He probably went through piles of paper. Here it is.
Yeah. No, he had a notepad out for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. If this is on the free channel, we have a website, amodelerslife.com. If you go to that and you scroll down, you'll see a picture of the moderately agitated male boy in a particularly agitated state. And if you just click on his picture, boom, then you can send an email that way and you don't have to worry about the address. And also, if this is on the free channel, if you go, you'll also see near the top of the website, there's a link to something called Patreon. And if you click on that, if you think this podcast is great and you'd like twice as much podcasting each week for just 365 easy payments of 16 cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting. And that's the Patreon channel, which Kaylee Zhang refers to as the Antics channel. And let's see, what else can we tell them? Oh yeah, and hey, David, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
Absolutely.
Well, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, go across the navigation bar and click on AML. You'll be taken to a wonderland of AML merchandise: hats, hoodies, T-shirts, mugs, whatever you could possibly need. And there's T-shirts there with a hot dog on it. And there's also
I just got one of those Onondaga cutoff shirts.
Oh, did you? Oh, I saw that.
I did. Yeah. I'm ready. Ready.
I don't think.
But there's no T-shirt with a hot dog on it. No offense.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
And you don't technically have it yet.
Yeah.
That's exactly. That's true.
Yeah. The money's been exchanged.
Yes.
But rest assured, the shirts have been ordered and they will. And now that I don't have to sell my soul to get across the border. It looks like there's a dent in your music stand. Did you rear end the guy in the violin section?
Those music stands, they take a lot of abuse.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure by the looks of it. All right, I think we're done, are we not?
I think so.
Pretty much sure. I think.
Yeah, okay. So I think we're going to have to do two endings for this because I really have no idea where it's going to end up, which is kind of exciting when you think about it.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own
adventure.
You go. So we'll do. So David, at the appropriate time, but you know this because you're a veteran, you have to say happy rails to you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am.
Well, David, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
All right. So now are you ready? Do you have an ending?
Sure.
Are you positive?
Positive.
Eh?
It's not going to be Subway Chimes Go. Don't worry.
So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
professional orchestral hornists.
Wow, that's
beautiful.
That's a beauty. That one's nice. Why can't you be like that, Kelly?